Maybe we should bring one of my rivals on this
I reckon
podcast.
that'd be sick.
And I'll just go head to head, like looking with an eye contest, like a boxing match, look him in the eye.
Welcome to Happy Millionaire, a show about how to make profit with a positive impact and stay happy along the way.
I saw you on TV. Obviously, you go on TV a lot, right? But I saw you were on some like talk show on ITV, and it looks so perfect, right? Like I've seen you on before. I've seen you in a few shows, and everything just looks incredible. What's really going on? Like, is it as smooth as
it can be quite chaotic. It was very last minute. I got the call up like 6 days before they went filming. It's interesting because you've got like 6 or 7 minutes, hit your lines. You've already got the questions sort of prepared. You just have your segment and then you're whisked away and then that's it.
I was just here that, you just get thrown in, right? And there's sometimes not even much script. It's just literally freestyle, but sometimes it's super scripted.
It's kind of pre-booked banter. It's like, what were you doing last week? I saw something on Instagram. Let's talk about that. And, there might be a joke that we say before going live. I'm like, let's do that again. And we're going to do it again. And you have to like laugh in a certain way. And you have to like, sort of live that excitement or that like giggle that you had for the show. And I don't know, I don't like being that kind of contrived. So I just prefer the long form format of like podcasts and stuff like that,
So my topic is about intensity, right?
Okay.
Intensity matters. And you know this, and maybe some people listening may know I'm a huge boxing fan, right? It's my favorite sport. And why it is that I feel it's essentially like, I feel like we're all like gladiators in life. Like we go work in our jobs, in our careers, and we work really, really hard. We deal with pressure, situations. And I feel like the most intense job is being a boxer. Like you are going in that ring. And what I find most fascinating about boxing is the training camp. So before you fight someone in the boxing ring, right, you go on these grueling camps, which are usually 8 to like 12 weeks. And in there, you have to like eat really well. You have to do sparring. So, fight with other people. You do lots of mindset work. You do strategy work. Like there's so much to it.
Yeah.
However, the best boxers are doing exactly the same things, but just doing it more intensively. That is it. It just made me think, like, when I think of my work, I feel that, because I've had a few people that join my companies or start working, they say, wow, you're really, really intense sometimes. And I know I am in my work. So when I'm like running meetings or when I'm fundraising, and I can share some examples of that. But before I do, can you relate to what I'm saying?
100%. I definitely relate to it because I think I'm intense in a different way. So I'm intense when it comes to things like routines, things like being strict with my time management, things like, replying to emails. Like that is you might meet me and just think, oh, Rupy's pretty laid back or Rupy's pretty chilled and stuff. But in the back of my head, I'm very intense when it comes to anything to do with my business or work and stuff. And the intensity sort of shows itself when you look at the amount of output I'm putting out in terms of pods, content, social media, books, the app, all that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, the intensity I definitely get, and I definitely get that from you because again, looking at the accolades, looking at what you've done thus far, and also I'll never forget this thing you said. Maybe you're about to talk about it. I don't want to like
no.
shit on your parade or anything, but I think I met George. Is he one of your co-founders?
No, it'd be Nuno or Zhao.
Zhao, that's it. Yeah. You just completed a round, and you told me before, like you went into Street Fight mode, which I love. I've never seen Street Fight mode, but I spoke to Zhao about it, and it was like, yeah. So apparently he he went pretty intense, and Zhao just looked at me and was like, yeah. It was amazing. So go on, tell me about...
I can tell you about fundraising. Like, I think fundraising is like, so if you have a startup and you want to raise money, you go through a fundraising process. And what people don't realize is that a lot of the fundraising is actually like those conversations actually start way before you need the money. Like you need to build the relationships. There's this whole aspect of building these relationships, going out for coffees, lunches. When you've got loads of other things going on, you have to go meet these people, right? Because no one wants to essentially put money in your business in like, in like a 2-3 week period or a month, right? It's like a one night stand. No one wants to do that, right? Everyone wants to basically get to know you a bit better. So that's very important. And I advise a lot of founders now, right? And I realize what I do different to them. Like when the pressure starts hitting in on fundraising, so let's say you want to go raise $1 million or 10, 20, whatever it is, right? You've got this specific period of time where you're going to meet everyone, right? And you might want to meet 10 people. I'll choose to go meet like 25, 30. I'll do as many as I can, right? At the same time, the information I put together investment memos. So, let's say you want to invest in a business, they create this like 6-7 page deck, right? Or 10 page deck. I create a full memo. So it is a 25 page document of why they should invest in me. I do the research and work for the investors. And what's really different with me as well is that I see a lot of entrepreneurs, they want to go off on holiday. When halfway through the fundraising process, they're going, man, I'm so tired. Like, I want to take a break. I'm like, no. You got to stay in that. You got to stay in the lane. You can go take that holiday until the money's done or you signed at least a term sheet, which is the first phase. Yeah. And that's just like, if you want to be great in a startup, I just know in certain moments, you have to put that intensity dial up. Like, you have to find that extra gear. Otherwise, it's all about momentum. I think that momentum is so important in startups. And I don't know, intensity, all I can say is I just feel intensity matters in like all the great stuff.
This is kind of validating how I've been feeling over the last couple of months, actually, that I've been having all these conversations and like meeting people and, video calls, coffees, all that kind of stuff, without actually giving anyone the means or, the go ahead to like, okay, yes, I'm raising now, but I'm just sort of like putting feelers out. And I feel like initially I was kind of like just wasting time. Like, I should really just be like focusing on the business 100%. But actually what you just said now is actually quite validating for all the work that I've been putting in over the last few months, because I can now turn back to those people and be like, you know what, the deck that I showed you, the business trajectory and the product roadmap and all that kind of stuff, well, it's go time now. And like, we're at this stage and this is what we're going to be doing. So I'm kind of like been softly building up those relationships. So
yeah, no, it's great. I think those coffees are good, and then just get them like on a newsletter, like essentially give them regular updates. So don't, I know you met them a year ago or 6 months ago, but keep them like up to date with all your metrics, like create like a monthly or quarterly newsletter. That's really important.
It's interesting you talk about intensity, right? Because a mutual friend of ours, Ash Karai, who started MediShout, he I remember like 6-7 years ago, this is before I invested in his company, 6-7 years ago, I was with him at a medics conference, whatever. It was like medical devices conference. And we're on the way back. It was in Munich, I think. On the way back, and he's on the computer, and he's got this long Excel spreadsheet with literally like, I don't know, he was on column like 300 something. He was filling in all these details, looking at his phone, filling in this. I was like, mate, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm filling in all the information that I have on the people that I met at this conference. And he'd been doing this for literally like 2 or 3 years prior. And so when it came around to him fundraising, like literally years later, he hit up all these contents. And I remember thinking to myself, man, he's intense, and that's good. That you need that sort of dedication. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's still got married, he's still got like a very happy lifestyle, he still, has time out, but when it's time to work, he's found that extra gear, and I know he can,
No, I love it.
Do you remember Poppy? I've mentioned her to you, Poppy Jamie. She started.
Yeah, you did.
She started this app called Happy Not Perfect a few years ago, back like similar time to Calm. But we had coffee this morning, and dude, she's super inspiring. I think she's going to be. You're going to want her to be a co-host because she's into spirituality.
Amazing.
She's into everything to do with horoscopes and astrology in general. She's awesome.
Yeah, so we should bring her on. All right, what have you got?
On the subject of happiness, I was at a wedding, a small wedding this weekend. And I think it's easy to think that we want to optimize for higher revenues, like a nicer car, a nicer house, and all that kind of stuff. But this weekend's experience really sort of framed exactly what I'm trying to optimize for. And so I'll set the scene for you. We went down to Surrey. It was one of Rochelle's best friends' weddings. They've got a place in Cobham. It's a lovely area. You know, if people don't know it, you know, got lovely sort of like suburbia and like nice grass lawns. You know, the kind of place where people say hello to each other, right? Which is unusual in the UK, or at least in London. We went there, and it was a small wedding. It was probably about 25, 30 people, close family, very close friends only, one long table. It was a beautiful summer's day. And we had all these generations around this table, right? I was sat next to the grandma, her great grandchildren were like running around. I remember just taking a moment and just thinking, I really want every weekend or every other weekend to be just like this, surrounded by my closest friends, my closest family, without having to have the excuse of a wedding for us to all sort of like congregate, but where we get to spend good quality time. It must have only been about 3 or 4 hours, right? It was catered for. We had all these people around, you know, everyone was just in a chill level. And that for me is pure wealth. And that for me is happiness. And it's sort of, I don't think I'm going to veer off that, because really what I'm trying to optimize for is that scenario every single weekend. And it's framed the way I think about how much money one needs to achieve that. And I think the one thing I want listeners to take away from is, I think we're more wealthy than we actually lead ourselves to believe, because we're constantly looking at what we see on our social media feeds or what society is telling us that is true happiness or true wealth. And I think, you know, if you have that environment where you can call up a few people, or you have close family, or you have like generations where you can actually, you know, bounce ideas across, that for me is true wealth, man.
I always find when you're in experiences like that, you just feel... like you feel, because you're in a very peaceful, joyful place, right? It just centers you. And I think that's the moment when, you know, you start going in a state of, you know, happiness or joy. Like, 'cause I think happiness and like, it feels like it was a happy moment, but at the same time, there was so much happiness in there. It just like really centered you, and you hit that joyful state. So I think joyful's really what we all strive for. And, you know, you were in that state because, you know, you had the people, you had the experience. It was just, you know, you had no stress. It was just very relaxed. So, I'm happy. I'm really happy for you that you had that.
Definitely,
that moment.
I'll tell you another reason why I've been thinking about this, right? I mentioned it on the podcast. I don't know when it was, but you know, I read this book by Luke Burgess called Wanting, and it's basically a modern adaptation on mimetic theory, which is, long story short, this like French philosopher in the 1950s or 60s, I believe, he came up with this theory of mimetic desire, which is basically where, I'm probably going to butcher the sort of explanation of this, but basically it details why humans desire things. That we think that we want things autonomously. Like, I want to have a Ferrari because of the engine and the color, and because I'm really into cars and all that kind of stuff. You can rationalize the reasons as to why you want a luxury car. But reality, and maybe you don't want to admit it to yourself, or it's a subconscious force, the reality is you assign a certain value to that car because you've seen it somewhere. You've tried to model yourself on a lifestyle that you're trying to achieve based on someone that you know or someone that you aspire to be having said car, right?
Like a rapper.
What?
Like a rapper.
Like a rapper, yeah, exactly. And actually, rappers are a pretty good example, because rappers are always trying to outdo each other with more and more jewels and more, like, you know, I don't know, accolades, whether it be Grammys, whether it be like better videos, whether it be bigger houses. You know, that is mimetic theory in action, because they're modeling their behavior on what they've seen in other scenarios. And so this sort of idea of mimetic theory I now see everywhere. So if you think about like fragrance adverts, right? There is no reason why I should want to buy Sauvage, but I can't remember who it's by. Let's say
it's Dior.
Dior, there you go. Dior,
I've got it.
You got it. You got it. Yeah, it's good.
It's actually all right.
So there's nothing in that advert with what's his name?
Johnny Depp.
Huh? Johnny Depp, exactly. There's nothing in that advert that features Johnny Depp that ascribes any value to the aftershave at all. I don't know what sort of like perfume notes there are. I don't know sort of how it's sourced. I don't know what the quality of the ingredients are. All I know is that Johnny Depp wears it. And that makes me want to, well, it doesn't make me, but it makes a lot of people want to have said aftershave.
I think what's fascinating as well is sometimes, I don't know, when you were thinking of the example, I thought of, I don't know why, the Kanye West documentary came to my head, and like Kanye West wanted to be like the next Jay-Z, right?
Yes.
And so Jay-Z, you know, signs up Kanye West, and then eventually like Kanye West has got this huge personality and tries to overtake Jay-Z. Like everyone publicly knows that, right? So now you've got Kanye West wants to be Jay-Z, but actually wants to be bigger than Jay-Z, and then they have this massive feud, or because it's basically two huge alpha males going at it, and then eventually they separate and they have, you know, arguments, etc., right?
Yeah.
But I guess that's also one of the big dangers, right?
Mimetic theory in action leads to rivalry. Exactly what you just said, because it's weird, because it's kind of like unspoken. Even in friendships, there is mimetic desire. So let's say you desire, I don't know, a particular flat or like an apartment, and you're like, it's got the sick apartment, it's 3 bedrooms, it's got a spiral staircase, it's got a pool in it. I subconsciously now want to have the same apartment because you, my friend, someone who I associate with, someone I, you know, in certain elements aspire to, want said apartment, and that's why I want that as well. The same thing can be said the other way. Like, now I'm getting married, maybe Jay Roddy wants to get married as well. I'm not saying you do, but maybe those kind of thoughts begin to percolate in your head, and actually you desire the same thing as me because I desire it as well. So basically what mimetic theory is like, it's easier to desire something when it's been desired or realized first. That's something I wrote down when I was making notes on the book. It's easier to desire something when it has first been desired first. So exactly in the same vein as the Kanye Jay-Z thing, you know, Jay-Z has got this amazing career. Kanye once said amazing career. Same thing happens in history. Alexander the Great conquered, you know, most of Asia. Suddenly, Julius Caesar, who also sees Alexander the Great as an equal person, but in a different time, wants to have the same achievement, if not more, than his adversary or someone he aspires to be like Alexander the Great. Yeah,
no, I like it. I think it's what you probably find is both people will up their game, hopefully. So it's actually a good thing. Hopefully, it's done in a friendly, nice way, because, you know, at the same time, I think, you know, I also see that in relationships with like mentors and mentees, right? I've had certain friends who've had mentees who, you know, they teach them everything. They're really nice, and suddenly next thing they know, they're trying to overtake them. And, you know, there is this element of, I think you find very ambitious people are very competitive, right? So I can see the great things in that. It's inspiring, but yeah, it creates rivalry. But I guess that's just human nature as well to some degree.
This is pure human nature. So, you know, mimetic behavior is seen in babies. Like, they learn to want things based on what they see other people wanting. So, you know, that classic environment, I don't know if you've got like nieces and stuff, but you see a little baby and they have a toy, and then suddenly the other one wants the toy. That's mimetic behavior in action. And it's before they even began to vocalize as well, before they can even use words to express how they're feeling. So mimesis is like this driving cultural force that's kind of taboo to talk about because of the reasons that we've just talked about. You know, like, you don't want to demonstrate that you're jealous, or you don't want to demonstrate that you have a rival, but that's very much human nature. And so the trick, I guess the takeaway for me, and perhaps the listener might be, is to observe mimetic behavior in action and actually try to figure out, if possible, what your true desires are, because it's very easy to model your desires on other people's instead of your own. And going full circle back to that sort of environment where I was at this table and this wedding and this beautiful environment, that wasn't me modeling my desires on having a wedding just like this. It was me actually wanting to capture this feeling, this energy that I want to sort of experience, this sort of, you know, the closeness with people, the sort of like, you know, the richness of the emotions that people had amongst you. That's the kind of family environment that I want to aspire to. And it's actually closer than a lot of people realize.
I always find that you got to really be able to differentiate when you're being like envious, right?
Yeah.
Or like, because there's envious, jealousy, and then or inspiring. So whenever I, you know, see situations, and like, you know, I'm like, we all get triggered, right? We see something, we're like, we want that, right? And I really just ask, like, is this really good for my life? I ask myself like 3-4 times before I go chasing, because I can, I'm ambitious, probably like most people listening, and I want to try to make the most out, want to maximize my life, right? To some degree, like make the most out of it. And yeah, just being careful on that is really important.
And this is very true, I think, in the entrepreneurial environment that we both live in, right?
Yeah.
Because you can sort of model, and this is why I wanted to bring it up with you actually, because it comes back to your spiritual side, but you can model your desires based on what you see. Oh, so-and-so's got a unicorn company. I want a unicorn company. Or like so-and-so, made the 30 under 30 list. I want to be 30 under 30 or 40 under 40 or whatever it is. You know, it's very easy to become that way and triggered by that, because, you know, our smartphones give us billions of impressions every single time that we utilize them. It's very easy to be exposed to desires that are mimetic in nature. And I guess what the sort of typical Silicon Valley trajectory of an entrepreneur is, you become an entrepreneur, you have a good exit, maybe you do another company, you become financially independent. You can either continue along the escalation of ever more and more accolades, you know, unicorn, decacorn, whatever, or you can go the spiritual path. And that's sort of like where I see you sort of ending up. And, people might think of it as cliche. I think it's pretty mature. And so my question to you is, now that you know a bit more about mimetic theory that we've just been talking at, do you see sort of the trend towards you going, and learning a bit more about yoga and Sadhguru as a mentor and all these kind of things? Do you see that as like a bucking the trend from like wanting ever more, aspirations or ever more sort of revenues from companies, or like?
I think every human realizes that the hedonic chase on the treadmill just never works, right? And that's why I worked out. It was never going to work if I keep on trying to grab all these gold coins like Mario Kart or something like Mario, and it was never going to make me happy, right? So I had to find a game which was going to make me happy, and that's the inner game, right? And hence I think everyone will find their game. I think what we've discussed today is like one of the challenges in this world is the element of just trying to collect all these coins, and it just never ends. So, but I think, look, collecting coins are good as long as you're doing it from a good place.
Well, this is the thing. This is why I think Happy Millionaire as a concept, or Happy Millionaire the podcast, or why people are tuning in, is because you can have your cake and eat it. You can aspire to create companies with incredible wealth and achieve all those things that you might generally want to feel, as long as you're aware that you're not doing it just out of the chase or just to better your rivals or whatever. And so, just because you've gone down the route of trying to play the game of optimizing your inner game and, becoming happy and focusing on happiness in yourself, doesn't mean that you can't also play the other game of building companies and raising money and like doing all that kind of stuff. And that's the sort of balance of...
I think what changed it for me was just having like that purpose statement for me. So it was like bringing joy to work. Like that was my statement. So I'm only going to do work that, or anything that I do has to bring more joy to work. Yes, it's joy to work in life, but my niche was because I work hard. I'm in entrepreneurship. That's where I can hopefully give people some insights and wisdom around that topic. So as long as you know how you want to serve and you want to like help. Once you know that, it just means that whenever you are on this treadmill, like as long as you've got that thought in your mind, it should hopefully stop you from going too far. You do it from the right way. Anything on the app? What's the latest on the app?
The app stuff. I actually spoke to a couple of people over the last 1.5 weeks. One guy, basically, was a friend of Ian's who started Fit, F-I-I-T. I don't know if you've come across it before. It's really cool fitness app. They started a few years ago. Ex-Google guys co-founded it, raised a bunch of money.
Oh, Ian.
Yeah, Ian.
That rings a bell. So I think he was... weirdly, I think he used to compete with me at Your
Yes, he
at Qubit.
did. Yeah,
does he know me?
At Qubit. Yeah, he does know you. Yeah, because I mentioned I was doing this podcast, and he was like, "Jay, isn't Jay Radio?" And I was like, "Yeah."
I've never actually met him.
We have to talk about competitiveness on another pod actually, because I find it weird like to be.
Maybe we should bring one of my rivals on this
I reckon
podcast.
that'd be sick.
And I'll just go head to head, like looking with an eye contest, like a boxing match, look him in the eye. Yeah,
Well, like a current rival or an old rival.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, let's do the ex.
We'll start with the X ones first.
Yeah, and then we'll see how that goes. That would be really interesting.
So I'm friends with a few of them, but yeah, I feel that would be. I actually, weirdly, I'm friends with a lot of my competitors, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah,
because you never know what's going to happen.
Anyway, yeah. So I was chatting to him. And he introduced me to another friend of his called Alistair, and he does benchmarking exercises for large organizations at 50 to 200 people, because interesting company actually, you might have remote employees in like Croatia and India and like America, like working all over the place. How do you know what is the right amount to pay them based on all the different inputs that they have, cost of living, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, he said to me, look, what you need is someone to look after the technical side. You need a CTPO. I haven't even heard of this. I didn't even realize they existed. A Chief Technical Product Officer. And in some companies they exist. I don't think they're the norm, but I looked at a few and they do exist. There's someone with technical skills, but also strategy skills who can lead small product teams, but also have the technical expertise to execute as well.
They're sometimes called like CTOs, right? But they're from product backgrounds, but they can understand product engineering. So yeah, let's say you are a commercial, like focused CEO or a commercial co-founder, right? The ultimate person you're a tag team with is someone who knows product and tech, so hence the 100%. CPTO. But they're rare because it's rare for a product person to understand the engineering side as well. But
I was reading this article actually on, I can't remember what it was, but I'll link to it in the show notes, about the tech shortage, the engineering shortage right now, just globally. Just everyone's after tech people, and there's a number of excuses. The Googles and the Facebooks of this world are just paying them exorbitant fees, so it's very hard for small startups to acquire them, and even very well-funded startups are paying crazy fees, so someone who isn't well-funded is not going to attract the right talent for whatever reason. But the key drivers to someone from that background wanting to join a company, one is purpose, and equity is sort of important, but I think that the mission is one of the most important things.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've got, an incredible missions to help people leverage the power of food to improve their health, well-being, and lifestyle. Yeah. Which is one of the biggest issues to solve right now.
Yeah, I think we talked about on the episode on like for you to try to find that co-founder. It's bloody hard, dude. It's like dating, right? You're gonna have to meet a lot of people. So I think it's good you speak to these people. I think the most important thing you can do is, when you meet them, just ask them, hey, who are the top 3 best people you worked with? Yeah. I think you just got to get used to asking that question. Yeah. And I know this is the thing, I find so many people in startups are just afraid to ask for help. I just think you just need to, like, you never actually ask, you've never ever asked me, hey, do I know 3, like,
I haven't.
You've never asked
No, I don't think I've asked you. I just wanted to assume you would have told me.
No, I thought you would find it yourself, so then I didn't really go into my library in my head talking out loud.
No, but you're right. I don't think people do it enough. Yeah. Actually, you know what? Have you been watching Indian Matchmaking? The second series? No. One of the characters is this Gujarati girl who's super successful, really driven.
Gujarati Indian girl, right?
Yeah, Gujarati Indian girl. She's on this date and she's like talking about like, she's successful and she's driven, all the rest of it. And he asks her like, how many dates have you been in over the last like 3-4 years? And she's literally like 4. And it's just like, if you don't get the numbers up, if you don't start having those conversations, if you don't start dating like you've just been telling me, then it's a numbers game. You're not going to win the game. So I basically, this is my wake up call to start dating more often.
All right. So our good friend Amit's come to torture us now.
So, Rupy.
I ramble on a bit today.
Yeah, good episode, guys. I think Jay, ratings wise, I'm going to give you about a 3.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh,
the reason being, like the first few episodes, the first few episodes.
I've gone from a 9.2 to a 3.
Yeah.
All right, fair.
No, it's because before you were in the Championship, the Division 1, but now you're in the Premier League. The second topic was happiness and what you're optimizing for, and then like you guys switched into mimetic theory. Some things are so easy to measure, like money, what school your kids go to, or where you're working, whereas these softer things about like the connections you have, the way you spend your moments, they're much harder to measure, and unless you really know what makes you happy, you're always going to start looking to get that validation from other people.
Yeah, we don't prize it as much, I don't think, in society, this sort of the intangible, the softer sort of elements. And I think you're right. When you learn about it, you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
And you sort of know why, like, you know, rock stars who have got all this incredible success, or success, quote unquote, that, you know, whether it's awards, whether it's show tickets and stuff, and they go down the other path of like drugs, because they're trying to figure out like what makes them happy, how they're going to get that dopamine hit, instead of actually looking at the moments between the moments. And so, it sounds a bit cliche, but it's true.
And there's like another aspect to it as well, because like once people like, okay, like everyone's in a competition, and then some people get to the stage where they're like, oh shit, I'm never going to win this competition, so they go the other way, where all they do is like meditation, become Buddhist, they just like give up everything. It's almost mimetic theory in reverse. You're still really caring about what other people think, but you're sort of like, fuck you, I'm not going to play this game. And it's still like the same way, you're still trying to get a reaction out of people. And then I think ultimately you get to a stage that you realize what makes you happy. And then just the flip side, which you guys talked about, was like competition does breed excellence, though. So there's like a paradox. There's a paradox. You need, because you do. I think you probably want to pick your game freely, but then once you're in that game, you almost need that competition to like spur you to that next level.
I always say to people that I'm ridiculously competitive, but I want everyone to win. It's like so weird, right? Like you want, like I'm so like, if I'm head to head with someone like in business, like I want to win, and I will do whatever it takes to win, right? But at the same time, if they beat me, it's cool, they beat me, but like they beat me fair and square, hopefully, and I appreciate that, and I want them to do good. And even if like I do win, I still want my competitors to do good. Weirdly, I do, because I just want them to hopefully, you know, get their justice of whatever they deserve, right?
I think that's the exception, not the norm.
Yeah.
I think your perspective is very novel.
Because I think, you know, when you think about competitors, especially in anything you do, these are the people that are walking the same journey, the same road as you. It's super rare, right? Like just think, I'm a tech entrepreneur in this specific area, or hey, I'm a doctor in this specific area. And yes, they might be competing for your job or your funding or whatever, but these are the guys that have decided to walk the same road out of the billions of people. They're walking side by side on the road with you. I think it's like, you should get to know them, right? These are your traveling friends.
So in terms of you finding your business partner, so there's this thing about like dating a lot, but I don't know, like, you know, when you first start dating or something, like, especially if you're on apps, you're almost like, okay, I want a girl who's like maybe has this job, and like she's like, you kind of have a criteria, and you do need to go on a lot of dates. But then, like, when you just know, if that makes sense.
You have the intuition.
You have the intuition, and it's almost like, I don't know, this, and it was like like this. So we were saying is like when we found our like production company for this podcast, like Fascinate Productions, they like, out of everyone that we interviewed, like straight away you could like tell there was like a connection. People on the shape.
And we had some good drinks together. It was fun. No, great episode, Amit. Thanks for jumping in as always. And do
you want to stay Premier League next time, or shall I bring you back? Like, if I give you the championship,
Division 1.
No, it's fine. No, 3 is good because I can only get better, right? That's good. And hopefully the listeners will cheer me on, because I need some moral support after that beating.